Most people think men fall in love fast or not at all. They assume if he hasn't said it, shown it dramatically, or defined it clearly, then it must not be happening. But the truth is far more subtle than that. Men often fall in love slowly, quietly, sometimes even unconsciously, and many of them don't realize what they're feeling until it's already taken root. Because for most men, love doesn't begin with emotional speeches. It begins with respect, comfort, and gradual attachment built through repeated experience. So if you've ever wondered how men really fall in love, even when they swear they don't, here's what most people don't understand. The first stage is respect before romance. Attraction might get his attention, but respect is what makes him stay mentally engaged. A man can be physically drawn to many women, but he begins falling for the one he genuinely respects. Respect for her mindset, respect for her boundaries, respect for how she carries herself. When he sees emotional stability instead of chaos, calm confidence instead of constant drama, something shifts internally. He may not label it as love yet, but admiration begins forming, and admiration is the foundation of attachment. Attraction is easy, respect is rare, and rare things hold weight in a man's mind. The second stage is emotional safety. Men rarely talk about this openly, but it matters more than most realize. A man starts lowering his guard around the woman who makes him feel understood instead of judged. When he can share stress, frustration, or even uncertainty without immediately being criticized or belittled, a quiet bond begins forming. This doesn't mean you become his therapist or tolerate bad behavior. It means you respond calmly instead of reactively. You listen without turning every conversation into a battle. When a man feels emotionally safe, his ego defenses soften, and once defenses lower, attachment has space to grow. He may still act composed on the outside, but internally, he begins associating you with comfort and stability. The third stage is investment. This is where many women misunderstand how attachment builds. Feelings don't always create effort. Often, effort creates feelings. The more time, energy, and thought he invests into you, the more emotionally connected he becomes. When he makes plans, helps solve problems, introduces you to his world, or adjusts his schedule to see you, something psychological happens. The brain starts valuing what it works for. Effort builds emotion. That's why chasing rarely works. If you do all the emotional labor, his attachment stays shallow. But when he chooses to invest voluntarily, his emotional bond strengthens naturally. Love doesn't grow from convenience. It grows from chosen involvement. The fourth stage is shared peace. This is where things become deeper than excitement. Early attraction often feels intense. There's chemistry, flirtation, unpredictability. But love feels different. Love feels calm. When being around you reduces his stress instead of increasing it, when your presence feels grounding rather than dramatic, he starts associating you with stability. Many men don't fall in love with chaos. They fall in love with peace. They fall for the woman who feels like a safe place in a loud world. And that shift often happens quietly. He may not announce it. He may not even consciously analyze it, but he begins prioritizing time with you because being with you feels better than being anywhere else. The fifth stage is subtle but powerful, the fear of losing her. Sometimes men don't fully recognize their feelings until they sense distance. When your presence becomes slightly less guaranteed, when you're busy, calm, and not constantly chasing reassurance, he begins noticing your absence differently. That small shift activates awareness. He imagines what it would feel like if you were gone completely. And that imagined loss clarifies attachment faster than any emotional conversation ever could. Sometimes men realize they're falling in love not when everything feels stable, but when they sense it might disappear. The sixth stage begins showing externally through protective instinct. When a man starts caring deeply, his behavior adjusts. He becomes more attentive to how others treat you. He becomes more aware of your needs. He defends you in conversations. He prioritizes your well-being without being asked. This isn't about control or jealousy. It's about emotional ownership. He starts feeling responsible for protecting the connection. That responsibility signals attachment has moved beyond casual interest. And again, he may not say it directly, but his behavior starts shifting in ways that show deeper emotional involvement. The seventh stage is where love becomes visible through consistency. The seventh stage is where love becomes visible through consistency, not dramatic confessions, not grand speeches, not sudden emotional intensity, but steady, repeated choice. When a man is truly falling in love, his behavior stabilizes. He stops disappearing randomly. He stops keeping emotional distance just to protect himself. He becomes more predictable in a healthy way. He calls when he says he will. He makes plans and follows through. He checks in without being reminded. Love, for most men, looks like responsibility before it looks like romance. This is the part many women overlook. They wait for the words, "I love you," as proof. But often, the proof shows up long before the words do. It shows up in the way he integrates you into his daily life, the way he considers your schedule when making decisions, the way he includes you in future conversations instead of speaking only about himself. These shifts are subtle, but they signal something deeper happening internally. Because once a man emotionally commits, his actions start reflecting that commitment. Now, here's something important to understand. Men often resist labeling their feelings at first, not because they don't feel them, but because labeling something makes it real. And real feelings carry responsibility. They carry vulnerability. They carry the risk of being hurt. So sometimes he will say he's not ready, or that he's not looking for anything serious, even while his behavior is slowly aligning with attachment. This doesn't mean you should ignore words entirely. Words matter, but when you see consistent effort growing alongside hesitation, it may not be fear of you. It may be fear of how deeply he's feeling. Another key truth is that men don't always fall in love through intense emotional conversations. Many fall in love through experience, shared routines, inside jokes, quiet support during difficult days, repeated positive interactions that slowly build emotional weight. The brain forms attachment through repetition. The more consistently positive the experience feels, the stronger the association becomes. And one day, often unexpectedly, he realizes that your presence has become part of his emotional foundation. This is also why forcing love rarely works. If you push for emotional declarations before he's reached that internal clarity, you may trigger defensiveness instead of commitment. Pressure activates ego protection. Calm presence activates attachment. Love grows best in environments where it isn't constantly tested or demanded. That doesn't mean you lower your standards or accept inconsistency. It means you observe patterns instead of forcing timelines. It's also important to separate real attachment from temporary intensity. Some men can appear deeply invested in the beginning because excitement is high, but excitement is not the same as love. Excitement is driven by novelty. Love is driven by stability. When the novelty fades and he continues showing up with the same effort, that's when attachment is real. When he remains consistent even when things feel ordinary, that's when feelings are deeper than surface attraction. Another moment that reveals love is how he handles conflict. A man who is emotionally attached doesn't run at the first sign of disagreement. He works through it. He listens more carefully. He tries to fix rather than escape. Because once attachment forms, losing the connection feels heavier than resolving the argument. His behavior shifts from protecting his ego to protecting the bond. That shift is often one of the clearest signs that something serious is forming. And here's something many women need to hear clearly. If he hasn't fallen yet, it doesn't automatically mean you're not valuable. Timing, emotional readiness, and past experiences all influence how quickly someone allows themselves to feel deeply. Some men carry fear from previous relationships. Some struggle with vulnerability. Some take longer to process emotion. That doesn't excuse inconsistency or disrespect, but it does explain hesitation. However, you cannot force someone into readiness. You can only observe whether their actions move toward deeper connection over time. Real love reveals itself through patterns, through protection, through investment, through calm consistency, not through dramatic speeches. In the end, men really fall in love when admiration turns into respect. Respect turns into safety. Safety turns into investment, and investment turns into fear of losing what they've built. And when that process completes, his actions will speak long before his words catch up. The key is not trying to make him fall. The key is recognizing when he already is.